I was the stunt double Hollywood hated. Then I talked to Jason Statham. The call came at 3 a.m. The job's gone. Don't come back. No explanation. Just my entire career dead on the line. That was the 6th time. 6 different A-list leading men, 6 different blockbuster sets. 6 times I was called the best in the business, and 6 times I was thrown to the curb like a used prop. They thought I was just a dumb stuntman who'd take the fall and stay quiet. They never counted on the one actor in Hollywood who respects the grind more than the glamour. They never counted on Jason Statham. If you've ever been thrown under the bus by someone with more power, if you've ever been told to shut up and take it because that's just the way things are, then you need to hear this story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready. This isn't just a Hollywood expose. This is a blueprint for fighting back when the whole system is designed to crush you.
My name's Alex Rourke. For 15 years, I was a ghost. My face wasn't on posters, my voice wasn't in trailers, but I was there, in every car that flew off a cliff, in every bone-crunching fall from a 4-story building, in every fist fight that looked a little too real. I was a stunt double for the biggest action stars on the planet. I loved it. The camaraderie on a stunt team is like a brotherhood. You trust each other with your lives. You learn an actor's walk, their posture, the way they hold their head. You become their shadow. Then I got the call for Eclipse Force, a $200 million sci-fi epic starring Chase Sterling. You know him, chiseled jaw, perfect hair, action hero of the moment. My job was to double him in the zero-G corridor fight sequence, a nightmare of wires, rigging, and precise, brutal choreography. The first week was fine. Chase was distant, polite, but he looked through you, not at you. The problem started during rehearsal. The choreography had him taking a specific dramatic hit to the ribs, spinning backwards. It looked great, but Chase kept flinching, pulling his punch, making the move look weak. I pulled him aside, keeping my voice low, respectful. "Mr. Sterling, if you commit to the swing, I can sell the hit big. It'll look more powerful." He stopped. He looked me up and down, a slow, cold assessment. His eyes weren't on my face, they were on the padding under my suit, on my scarred knuckles. "I don't need a stuntman to tell me how to throw a punch," he said, his voice a quiet, venomous ice. "I need you to fall when I tell you to fall. You're a cushion. Act like one." The air left my lungs. A cushion? I'd broken 3 ribs and dislocated a shoulder perfecting that fall, and to him, I was furniture. The Eclipse Force incident was just the first drop of acid. Job 2, Miami Midnight, starring Drake Vance, the veteran tough guy. He prided himself on doing his own stunts, which meant he'd do the easy wide shot, then I'd do the dangerous close-up. During a high-speed boat chase sequence, my boat, rigged with a faulty hydraulic ejector seat, catapulted me into the water at 40 miles an hour. I came up gasping, my back on fire. The director yelled cut and ran to the monitor. Drake Vance stood on his luxury yacht, microphone in hand, and his voice boomed across the water. "Well, at least the dummy can swim." The crew laughed, a nervous, horrible laugh. I was hauled out of the water, not to a medic, but to a screaming line producer who blamed me for damaging expensive equipment. Job 3, the Chimera Project. Sebastian Thorne, the method actor. He demanded I stay in character as his character, a paranoid assassin, even off-set. For 3 weeks, I wasn't allowed to speak to anyone in a non-threatening tone. He'd have me fired for breaking his immersion if I laughed with a grip. I was a prisoner in his psychotic fantasy. When I finally snapped and told a PA good morning, Thorne had a screaming meltdown. My contract was terminated for insubordination and psychological unprofessionalism. Job 4, 5, and 6, the reasons varied. Liam, the legend McArady, decided my face, from a certain angle, was distractingly similar to his and made him look bad. The heartthrob Jaden Cole heard a rumor I joked about his need for a wig piece and had me removed without a hearing. The action comedy king, Rex Gunn, just said I had negative energy on set. The pattern was clear. I was good at my job, too good. I made the hard stuff look easy, which inadvertently highlighted their limitations. I was a living, breathing reminder of what they couldn't or wouldn't do. And so I had to be erased, Not with an argument, but with a quiet word from their assistant to the producer, a late-night call, a black mark on my reputation that whispered, trouble, difficult, uncooperative. The work dried up. My phone, once buzzing with offers, was a silent brick. The mortgage payments stacked up. The medical bills from a dozen untreated injuries loomed. I sat in my silent apartment, staring at the scars on my hands, a map of a career that didn't exist anymore. The anger wasn't hot anymore. It was cold, a heavy metallic ball of shame and fury in my gut. I'd given my body to an industry that saw it as disposable packaging. My agent, Marty, a man who'd seen it all, called me as a last resort. Alex, I got a Hail Mary. It's low budget, a gritty heist film, shooting in Bulgaria. The pay is crap, but it's Jason Statham. I laughed, a dry, cracked sound. Another one? They'll probably fire me for breathing too loud. Just go, Marty pleaded. It's this or driving a forklift, kid. Sofia, Bulgaria. The set was a world apart from the sterile sound stages of Hollywood. It was raw concrete, real rain, and the smell of diesel and wet earth. I was braced for more of the same, for the disdain. Then I met him. Jason Statham arrived not in a caravan of trailers, but in a worn-out Range Rover. He walked onto the set, nodded to the gaffer, shook the craft services guy's hand, then walked straight up to me and my stunt coordinator, Mike. "You're Alex," he said, his voice the familiar, grounded rasp. He didn't extend a hand for me to kiss. He extended a fist to bump. "Mike says you're the best fall guy in the business. Is that true?" I was stunned. I try to be, sir." "Don't sir me, it's Jason. Show me the sequence for the roof chase." We walked through it. It involved a leap across a 3-meter gap between buildings, a tuck and roll, and a slide down a drainage pipe. I pointed out a potential issue with the landing pad. Statham listened, his brow furrowed. He didn't look offended. He looked focused. "You're right," he grunted. "Padding's too soft. You'll twist your ankle. Mike, let's double up the mats and tie him down." Alex's call. It was the first time in a decade an actor had used my name and the word call in the same sentence and actually meant it. Later, during a break, he sat on an apple box beside me, both of us sweating and covered in synthetic brick dust. "Heard you've had a rough run," he said, not looking at me, just staring out at the set. The ball of cold anger in my gut tightened. Word gets around. It's a small town, and some people in it forget where they come from. They forget that the man who shows them how to look tough is the tough one. He finally looked at me. His eyes weren't the eyes of a movie star. They were the eyes of a fellow tradesman, a guy who knew what a real day's work felt like. It's bollocks what they did. In that moment, the cold ball of anger didn't explode. It thawed just a little to a searing sense of vindication. Someone saw it, and not just someone, him. Part 4, The Plan, The Reckoning, 1330 to 1745. The film wrapped. Statham shook my hand. "You're a pro, Alex. Anytime." It was the first clean, professional endorsement I'd had in years. But going back to the grind, waiting for the next maybe job, felt like surrender. The injustice of it all curdled in me again. These 6 men had taken food from my table, security from my family, and pride from my soul. And they'd done it from behind a wall of publicists and lawyers, their images spotless. I couldn't sue them. I couldn't fight them. The system was their armor. Then, 6 months later, the invitation came. A popular, respected podcast, The Action Cut, was doing a massive, in-depth retrospective on the career of Jason Statham. They wanted to talk to his collaborators, directors, fight choreographers, and stunt performers. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, a platform, but not a tabloid, a serious forum. I knew what I wanted to do. I called Statham's office directly, a move that broke every protocol. To my shock, he called back in 20 minutes. "Alex, you're calling about the podcast?" "Jason, I want to go on, and I want to tell the truth. Not just my story, the story about Chase, Drake, Sebastian, all of them." There was a long silence on the line. I could hear the hum of traffic in the background. "It'll burn bridges," he said, his voice flat. "They already burned mine, Jason. There's nothing left." Another pause. Then the sound that was more terrifying than any silence, a low, grim chuckle. "Right then, you tell your story, and when they ask me about it, I'll tell mine." The plan was set. Not a smear campaign, a testimony. Part 5, the execution, the confessional, 1745 to 2050. The podcast studio was quiet, intimate, just 2 hosts, microphones, and me. For the first 30 minutes, we talked technique, the craft, working with Statham. It was warm, professional. Then the lead host, a sharp woman named Sarah, leaned forward. "Alex, your resume is incredible, but there are gaps, long ones. Rumors in the industry that you were difficult to work with on some major sets. Can you speak to that?" This was the moment. The air in the room turned to glass. I could feel my pulse in my temples. "I wasn't difficult to work with, Sarah," I said, my voice steady, low. "I was difficult for 6 specific men to be seen with because I was a mirror and they didn't like their reflection." And I told them everything. I didn't yell, I didn't sob, I recited facts like an incident report. The exact words Chase Sterling used, a cushion. I described the sound of Drake Vance's laugh echoing over the water. I detailed the psychological prison of Sebastian Thorne's method madness. I named each of the 6. I described the late-night calls, the fabricated accusations, the quiet, career-killing blacklist. I spoke for 20 minutes, uninterrupted. When I finished, the room was utterly silent. Sarah looked pale. Her co-host was staring at his notes, his jaw tight. "And Jason Statham?" Sarah finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. "He was the exception that proved the rule," I said. "He looked at me and saw a colleague, not a piece of equipment." The episode aired. For 24 hours, nothing. Then, the internet caught fire. Part 6, the payoff, the fallout, 2050 to 2230. It started with the stunt community. Hashtag #IStandWithAlex began trending. Then, hashtag #stuntmen are not cushions. Dozens of other stunt performers, coordinators, and second unit directors began sharing their own stories, not always naming names, but painting a damning picture of a culture of abuse and disrespect. The media pounced. Stuntman alleges toxic behavior by A-list stars. The 6 actors' publicists went into overdrive, issuing bland statements. "We have the utmost respect for all crew members," and "these claims are categorically false and taken out of context." The dam held for about 48 hours. Then Jason Statham went on the record. He didn't do a podcast. He gave a single terse quote to a major entertainment outlet, and it was a tactical nuclear strike. I've worked with Alex Rourke. He's a consummate professional and a brave man. The stories he's told don't surprise me. This industry has a few very shiny, very fragile egos who wouldn't last 5 minutes doing the job of the people they belittle. Maybe it's time they were reminded where the real action is. That was it. Statham, a man whose entire brand was built on unshakable, no-bullshit integrity, had just vouched for me and called them fragile egos. His army of fans, who adore him precisely because he's not like other Hollywood stars, mobilized. The narrative flipped instantly, from disgruntled employee to brave whistleblower backed by the Statham. The climax. One by one, the consequences rolled in. Chase Sterling's next film lost its veteran stunt coordinator, who refused to work with him. Drake Vance was dropped as the face of a major truck brand after the viral clip of his dummy comment resurfaced. Sebastian Thorne's upcoming indie passion project had 3 key crew members quit, citing a hostile work environment. The others saw their cool guy public images permanently tarnished. They became the butt of late-night jokes, the answer to trivia questions about Hollywood hypocrisy. They weren't canceled, but they were exposed. Their shiny, invincible armor was shown to be cheap tin, propped up by the sweat and blood of people they considered beneath them. Fee, climactic revenge payoff, 2230 to 2345. The final moment of justice didn't come from a headline. It came in an email. It was from the Producers Guild, inviting me to co-chair a new committee on stunt performer rights and on-set conduct. The subject line, consultation offer. I didn't jump for joy, I didn't scream. I closed my laptop, walked onto my balcony, and breathed. The cold, metallic ball of anger that had lived inside me for years was gone. In its place was a quiet, solid warmth, a sense of weight being lifted from my shoulders. The phone rang. It was Marty, my agent. He was crying, not sad tears, hysterical, laughing tears of relief. "Kid, the phone, it's ringing off the hook. Every director who wants to look like a hero wants you on their set. You did it. You crazy son of a gun, you actually did it." I looked at my scarred hands, the map of my career. They weren't the hands of a ghost anymore. They were the hands of a man who had been broken and who had used the very pieces to rebuild something stronger. The revenge wasn't in their humiliation. It was in my restoration. It was in the newfound respect that echoed in every new offer, every call that began with, "Mr. Rourke, we'd be honored to have your expertise." G. Reflective Wrap-Up, 2345 to 2405. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction, it's about truth. It's about one person with nothing left to lose, holding a mirror to power. And sometimes it's about a single credible voice in the crowd saying, "I see you, and I believe you." That validation can be the most powerful weapon of all. H. Outro Call to Action, 2405 to 2430. If this story of quiet resilience and roaring truth resonated with you, do me a favor, smash that like button. It tells the algorithm that stories about the underdog matter. Comment below, who do you think the 6 actors are? Have you ever stood up to a bully in your workplace? And subscribe for more tales of stunning comebacks and justice served, one brave confession at a time. Expanded Story Editions. This content integrates into the original script, primarily expanding parts 4, 5, and 6 with deeper psychological detail, new scenes, and heightened stakes. Addition to Part 4, The Plan, The Reckoning, expanded from 1330. New scene, the Sofia aftermath. The Bulgaria job ended, but something had shifted. Statham invited the core stunt team, just 5 of us, to a private dinner at a family-run restaurant in the hills outside Sofia. No publicists, no managers, just lamb roasting over open fire and bottles of rakia. Statham raised a glass. To the mad bastards who jump off buildings for a living, the real stars of this fucking show. We drank. The warmth spread through me, but also the sharp memory of all the other sets, the other stars. Later, as we smoked outside overlooking the valley, Statham stood beside me. "The 6, he said, not a question, a statement. "Yeah, I know them. Worked with 2. They're empty rooms with very loud sound systems." He tapped his ash. "They'll keep doing it to the next Alex and the next." "I know, I said, the helplessness bitter on my tongue. "What did they do that hurt the most?" he asked, his voice low. "The words? The firing?" I thought about it, really thought. It was the erasure, Jason. After Chase Sterling called me a cushion, I spent 3 weeks training for that zero-G sequence. I invented a new wire work technique to make the spin look weightless. The day after he fired me, the studio released a behind-the-scenes featurette. It showed Chase training tirelessly with the stunt coordinator using my technique. My name wasn't in the credits. My face was blurred out. I was literally edited out of my own work. Statham was silent for a long time. The ember of his cigarette glowed like a tiny, angry eye in the dark. "That's theft," he said finally. "That's not just being a prick. That's stealing a man's legacy." Back in LA, the silence was louder. Bills piled up. I sold my custom stunt bike. I started driving for a rideshare app. One night, I picked up a fare from a trendy restaurant in West Hollywood. As he slid into the back seat, reeking of expensive tequila, I saw his face in the rearview mirror. It was Milo, Sebastian Thorne's personal assistant, the weaselly little guy who delivered the "you're breaking his immersion" ultimatums. He didn't recognize me. Stubble, a beanie, the hollow look in my eyes. I was just another service worker. He was on the phone, loud, performative. "Yeah, just left a meeting with Thorne. The man's a genius, I'm telling you. He's method deconstructing the concept of villainy for the Netflix series. So deep." "What? Oh, the stunt guy from Chimera?" "Yeah, he's driving for Uber or something. Serves him right. You can't bring that negative energy around an artist like Sebastian." I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned bone white. The ball of cold anger in my gut wasn't cold anymore. It was a white-hot supernova. I drove in silence, my mind playing his words on a loop. Serves him right. I dropped him off. He didn't say thank you, just got out. That was the spark. The moment the helplessness burned away, leaving only pure, focused intent. They weren't just above me. They were so far above me, they didn't even see me as a person who could hear them. I was the furniture that drives. The plan solidifies. The podcast invite wasn't just opportunity, it was providence. But I knew a raw, emotional rant would get me labeled a bitter lunatic. I needed evidence. I became a detective of my own demise. I tracked down the blurred-out B-roll from Eclipse Force and found the raw, unblurred footage from a camera test on a crew member's private Instagram. I found the safety report from the Miami Midnight boat incident, which clearly cited faulty manufacturer hydraulics, not operator error. I reached out tentatively to other ghosts, a stunt woman who'd been fired by Jaden Cole for having the wrong energy, a rigger blacklisted by Liam McReady for looking at him wrong. Their stories were my stories, with different names, same wounds. We formed a silent digital support group. We called it the Cushion Club. When I called Statham, I wasn't just bringing anecdotes, I was bringing a dossier.
Addition to Part 5, The Executions, The Confessions, expanded from 1745. The calm before the storm. The day of the podcast, I didn't wear a suit. I wore my old faded Transporter 2 crew hoodie, a subtle nod to Statham, a uniform of my actual profession. Sarah, the host, noticed. "Sentimental choice?" she asked as we mic'd up. "Armor," I said. The interview, deeper cuts. When Sarah asked a fateful question about the gaps in my resume, I didn't just launch in. I took a slow breath. "You know, Sarah, in stunts, we have a term, selling the hit. It means committing to the impact so the audience feels it. What I'm about to do is sell the hit. For real this time." Then I laid it out, not just as a victim, but as an expert witness. On Sterling, it wasn't the insult, it was the theft. Here is the raw footage of me developing the Sterling spin. And here is the official featurette with me erased. That's not ego, that's wage theft and credit theft. It's a violation of the Directors Guild and SAG-AFTRA rules he pretends to champion. On Vance, the safety report exonerated me. The production company buried it to avoid a lawsuit with the boat manufacturer. Drake Vance knew this. His dummy comment wasn't just cruelty. It was a strategic lie to control the narrative and protect the production from liability at my expense. On Thorne, I have the email chain from his assistant, Milo, outlining the behavioral guidelines for being near Mr. Thorne. It includes a clause about maintaining a baseline threat posture during craft services. This isn't method acting. This is creating a hostile work environment and calling it art. I presented my testimony with the calm precision of a bomb technician defusing a device. I wasn't angry, I was forensic. This made it 1,000 times more damning. The emotional kill shot. Towards the end, Sarah asked, "Alex, with all this evidence, why not sue?" I looked right into the microphone, my voice dropping to a near whisper. "You know, Sarah, in stunts, we can't sue a ghost for haunting you. Their power is insubstantial, but everywhere. It's in a producer's hesitation to hire you. It's in a coordinator's, let's go with someone else this time. A lawsuit fights a single fire. I'm trying to show people the arsonist playbook so everyone can smell the smoke next time." Addition to Part 6, the payoff, the fallout, expanded from 2050. The domino effect. Statham's quote was the detonator, but the explosion had unique contours for each man. Chase Sterling, his new grounded, authentic action franchise, was immediately mocked online. Memes juxtaposed his cushion the fall quote with clips of his clearly doubled stunts. The hashtag cushion the fall trended. More devastatingly, the Directors Guild opened an informal inquiry into the credit issues on Eclipse Force. Drake Vance, the resurfaced boat incident triggered a shareholder question at the parent company of the truck brand he endorsed. Does our brand of real toughness align with a man who mocks an employee injured by faulty equipment? His contract was not renewed. Sebastian Thorne, the behavioral guidelines email leaked in full. Netflix was bombarded with questions about the hostile work environment on his upcoming series. They mutually agreed to pause pre-production for a creative rethink. His method was now a liability. The others, the collective exposure created a new litmus test. Is he a Statham or a Sterling? Became shorthand in industry circles. Agents now whispered warnings to young clients about working with the Fragile Six. The climactic scene, the meeting. A month after the storm, I was summoned to a meeting at the headquarters of the major studio that had produced 3 of the films I was fired from. I expected lawyers, intimidation. Instead, I was met by a senior VP of production, a weary-looking woman named Elaine, and the head of the studio stunt department, a grizzled legend named Hank, who doubled for Steve McQueen. "We've read the Guild's new draft safety and credit protocols you co-wrote," Elaine said, no smile. "They're good. They're enforceable." Hank grunted. Took a stuntman to write them so the suits can't weasel out. He pushed the document across the table. It was a consult contract, a generous one. "We want you to implement them studio-wide, train the coordinators, audit the sets, be the goddamn hall monitor for the people who do the real work." Elaine leaned forward. "This isn't charity, Alex. It's damage control. The optics are a nightmare. You're the solution to the optics. But," she said, her eyes sharp, "if you take this job, the public war ends. No more podcasts. No more naming names. You fight from the inside." I looked at the contract. It was power. Real structural power to protect the next kid like me. It was a better revenge than any headline. I picked up the pen. Do I get to approve the stunt coordinators on any project starring Chase, Drake, Sebastian, Liam, Jaden, or Rex? A flicker of a smile touched Elaine's lips. As a core function of the role, I signed. The ghost was now the gatekeeper. The final beat, a different 3 a.m. call. Weeks later, my phone rang at 3 a.m. Not a block number, a familiar, desperate area code. I let it go to voicemail. The next morning, I listened. It was Milo, Sebastian Thorne's assistant. His voice was a panicked warble. "Alex, Mr. Rourke, sir, Sebastian he's in a very delicate place. This Netflix situation, he feels terribly misunderstood. He'd like to extend an olive branch, a private lunch. He wants to hear your perspective, to grow as an artist and a man. He's prepared to make a very public statement of support for stunt performers." I deleted the message. I didn't feel triumph. I felt a profound, almost weary clarity. The apology wasn't for me. It was for the Netflix deal. I was no longer a cushion or a ghost or a driver. I was a condition of their employment. I poured a coffee, walked to my home office,
No longer a spare bedroom, but a real office, and opened my email. There were dozens, requests, proposals, thank yous from young stunt performers. I started to work, building the system that would ensure no one would ever have to fight this particular war again. The quiet in the room wasn't the silence of a dead career. It was the peaceful, productive hum of a life rebuilt on my own terms, with the scars left visible and strong.